You know that little I agree button? We click it dozens of times a day, probably without even thinking about it. It's the key that unlocks pretty much everything we do online. But what if I told you that the whole legal idea it's built on, well, what if it's basically an illusion? The whole promise was so simple, right? The idea was that the law would put you in control of your personal data. It was supposed to be this great moment of empowerment, putting you squarely in the driver's seat. You get to decide what you share and who you share it with. It sounds great, it feels comforting. But is that click really a meaningful choice? Is it you actually being in control, or is it something else entirely? Let's really dig into that one single click, because when we do, we find this massive gaping chasm between what the law promises and what's actually happening to us every single day. Okay, so to really get why things are so broken, we first have to look at how it's supposed to work. We've got to start with the ideal. Let's take a look at what the law, especially in places like Europe, actually wants consent to be. This right here, this is the gold standard. And the key words are absolutely crucial: free, specific, and informed. See, the law isn't talking about some mindless automatic click. It's picturing a deliberate, conscious choice where you are fully in command. This one idea is supposed to be the bedrock of all modern data protection. So, for your consent to mean anything in the eyes of the law, it has to hit all three of these targets. It can't be forced, it can't be a blank check for them to do whatever they want, and you have to actually know what you're saying yes to. That's the theory, anyway. The reality, well, that's a whole different story. And this is the part where that beautiful ideal just completely falls apart, because the system we're all using every single day has these huge structural flaws that make true informed consent, well, nearly impossible. Let's start with the first big one. It all begins with this fundamental imbalance of power. There's a fancy term for it: information asymmetry. Just think about it for a second. The company, they know everything. They know exactly what data they're scooping up, how their secret algorithms use it, who they're selling it to. And you know basically nothing. So how can you possibly make an informed decision when the other side is holding all the cards? You know, this leads to a classic problem that economists call the market for lemons. Imagine a used car lot, where you have no way of telling the good, reliable cars from the total duds that'll break down tomorrow. You'd never be willing to pay top dollar, right? So eventually, all the people selling good cars just give up and leave the market. It's the exact same thing online. Because we can't easily spot the difference between a privacy-friendly website and a data harvesting one, there's no real incentive for companies to be the good guys. The entire market just gets dragged down to the lowest common denominator. But let's say, okay, you're going to fight this. You want to be one of the informed ones. Well, you immediately smash into the second massive barrier. The sheer cost of even trying to get informed is just ridiculously high. Economists have a name for this too: transaction costs. This number just blows my mind. It really puts everything into perspective. Researchers actually did the math. If every single American took the time to read every privacy policy they came across, the lost work time would cost the U.S. economy an absolutely insane $781 billion every single year. So let's be honest, we're not just being lazy by not reading them, it's completely irrational to even try. And hey, this isn't just a hunch. The data on what we actually do is crystal clear. One major study found that only about 1 in 1,000 people even bother to click on the license agreement link. And the few who do, they spend maybe a few seconds glancing at it. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is reading this stuff. And if you need one last, perfect, kind of hilarious example, this is it. A game store in the UK, basically as a prank, slipped a clause into its terms and conditions saying that by clicking agree, you were voluntarily surrendering your immortal soul. Over 7,500 people clicked yes. Now, it's funny, for sure, but it's also a pretty stark reminder that we just do not read the fine print. Ever. So we've established the system itself is fundamentally broken, but it gets worse. On top of all that, our own brains are basically working against us. Our minds are full of these little cognitive shortcuts and biases, and they are so easily exploited to just nudge us time and time again toward that agree button. First up is something called the status quo bias. This is our incredibly powerful, almost gravitational pull toward just sticking with whatever the default option is. We're creatures of inertia. We almost never change the pre-checked box or the factory settings. That default option, whatever it is unbelievably powerful. And you can see this in the real world with something incredibly important like organ donation. In countries where you have to actively opt in to be a donor, the rates are super low. But in countries where the default setting is that you are a donor and you have to go out of your way to opt out, the rates shoot up to nearly 100%. We're talking about the same people making the same decision. The only thing that changed was the default. That's how strong this bias is. And then there's this thing called present bias. We're all hardwired to want things and want them right now. That immediate gratification, getting to read the article, getting to use the app, it feels incredibly real and important. That potential kind of abstract privacy harm that might, maybe happen someday in the distant future, our brains just don't give it nearly the same weight. And you know this dance. You see it every single day. You land on a website and bam, a big tracking wall pops up and blocks you. Your goal, that article, is right there. You can almost taste it, but this thing is in your way. It's a classic take it or leave it choice. And your present bias is screaming in your ear. Just click the button. So you do. You grab that instant access, and those fuzzy future costs they just melt away. Now, when you repeat this process thousands and thousands of times over the years, what happens? You get conditioned. We've all been trained by these impossibly long, ridiculously complex user agreements. We've learned that reading them is totally pointless and that the path of least resistance is always to just find that agree button and click it as fast as humanly possible to get on with our day. So, if we all agree that the current model of consent is just broken, what do we do? How do we fix this? Well, the research seems to point toward two very different paths forward, and they're based on two completely different philosophies about who should be responsible for protecting your privacy in the first place. On one side, you've got the individual empowerment camp. Their goal is to try and fix the system we have by giving us better tools, more privacy-friendly defaults, clearer icons, real opt-in choices that mean something. The basic idea is still to put you in control, just with a better dashboard. But then, on the other side, you have the individual protection camp. This approach says the system is beyond fixing. They say instead, we need hard, mandatory rules that apply to every company. This could mean things like forcing companies to collect way less data to begin with, or even banning some harmful tracking practices altogether. The responsibility basically shifts from you, the user, to the system itself. All right, so let's pull all of this together. The single biggest takeaway here is that informed consent online is mostly a myth. It's a nice idea in a law book, but it completely fails in the real world. The system is fundamentally stacked against us with these huge information gaps and impossibly high costs. And on top of that, it expertly exploits our own brain's biases to get us to click. And that means that any real solution can't just be about giving us more options or more control. It's got to be something much more fundamental. And that really leaves us with the big, central question at the heart of this whole debate. When you go online, is protecting your own privacy your job? Is it a chore you're responsible for? Or is it your right? Something that should be automatically protected for you no matter what you happen to click?